Another big ticket item on the November ballot, legalization of marijuana, details ahead.
Plus, as more counties look to all-mail ballots, we take a closer look at the potential for fraud.
And later, we'll introduce you to a Montana native, part of a team working on a COVID-19 vaccine.
From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 530 News.
Thanks for making KRTV a part of your night. I'm Tim McGonigal.
And I'm Hallie Schwinnard. First tonight, other Big Sky fall sports teams are following suit after the conference voted last week to postpone the upcoming football season this spring.
After a recommendation from athletic directors, the conference's President's Council met yesterday to confirm the decision. The decision impacts all Big Sky sports that compete in the fall, both for their championship season, and that includes men's and women's cross country, soccer, and volleyball. It also affects sports that compete for their non-championship segments. That includes men's and women's golf, softball, and men's and women's tennis.
The Montana High School Association Executive Board approved proposals today to alter the Class AA and Class A fall sports season. The Class AA motion to remove non-conference competition from football, volleyball, soccer, and cross country passed. The board also approved limiting golf meets to one-day events and approved the elimination of the first round of the Class A football playoffs, which trims the bracket from 12 teams to 8. The start of the Class AA football and volleyball seasons has been pushed back to September. Additionally, the board adjusted its policy to require all players, coaches, and officials to wear facial coverings except during play. Well, it was a cooler day than what we've seen lately. Elizabeth Copeland joins us now for a first look at the forecast.
All right, well, good Thursday afternoon. We are seeing a couple of clouds out there through central Montana, but that also is keeping out the heat. So those clouds, the very thick layer of our Opportunity Bank ICAM and Helena is keeping out the sunshine, the heat. We are much cooler this afternoon after that cold front passed through just right about this time yesterday. That's also keeping temperatures quite a bit cooler. Not only the cloud cover, but because the cold front moved through, cooler air from our north has really started to settle in, and we're even closer to 10 to 15 degrees below where we were this time yesterday right now because of that colder air settling in. So we're going to still see that cooler air, at least cooler than average air settled in, not only during the daytime hours, but nighttime as well, as we're going to drop down to the 50s overnight. We're in the 60s by 10 a.m. Warming up only to the low 80s tomorrow, so still below average for our Friday, but we're talking a big warm up in the forecast as we head in the weekend coming up here in our extended forecast.
Thanks, Elizabeth. The Montana Department of Agriculture held a public hearing today. It was to consider adopting proposed rules for the Montana Hemp Research and Market Development Program. The proposed rules pertain to how the Montana Hemp Advisory Committee will operate, and it includes information on applications for hemp research, annual hemp assessments and collection, and more. Specific details about the rules can be found on our website. Concerned persons who did not attend the hearing may submit their data, views, or arguments by sending them to the Montana Department of Agriculture by 5 p.m. August 21st, 2020. Montanans already have a general election ballot crowded with high-profile races for many statewide offices, but now they have another big issue to decide: legalization of marijuana. MTN's chief political reporter Mike Dennison has the story.
Late Thursday, it became official. Two initiatives that would legalize recreational marijuana in Montana will be on the November 3rd ballot for voters to decide. Initiative 190, if passed, would legalize the possession and use of limited amounts of marijuana for those 21 and older. It also has a companion measure, Constitutional Initiative 118, which is needed to allow the 21-year-old age restriction in law. Without it, adults 18 to 20 could not be banned from possessing marijuana. The group behind the effort, New Approach Montana, collected more than 130,000 signatures of registered Montana voters to qualify both measures for the general election ballot. I-190 also would levy a 20% tax on the sale of non-medical marijuana in Montana, and supporters of the measure say that will generate $48 million a year by 2025. Campaign spokesman Pepper Peterson says New Approach's research shows that a majority of Montanans support legalization of marijuana. And in less than 2 months, Montana voters will start deciding whether that's true or not. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Now, Montana has had medical marijuana legalized in the state since 2005.
Next Tuesday, there will be a special Cascade County Commission meeting regarding mail-in ballots. The commission is being asked to vote authorizing the election administrator to conduct the November 3rd election through mail-in ballots. I want to be clear, this is not a public comment. This is within the commissioner's jurisdiction. We will keep you posted on the outcome. With so many claims of mail ballot fraud, even by the president, we decided to look into it and see the science and data really shows us about election fraud. Dan Grossman found it doesn't back up the fraud theory.
If you've been on Twitter over the course of the last few months, you may have noticed some tweets about mail-in voting fraud. Turns out voting this way is just as secure as going to the polls.
Somebody is more likely to be struck by lightning than they are to commit voter fraud.
Lawrence Norden is the director of the Election Reform Program at the Brennan Center for Justice, a nonpartisan public policy group at NYU. He says in the last few federal elections, 25% of all votes were cast through mail-in ballots. Not only can it be more convenient, it can be an important tool when it comes to verifying the results.
Mail ballots are paper ballots. That means that we do have an opportunity to audit all of those ballots, but I think people should feel very comfortable about the security of the system.
Firstly, mail-in voting reduces the risk of foreign interference to nearly zero. Mail-in ballots are printed on a specific type of paper with technical markings. They also include several local elections, like city councils, school boards, and ballot initiatives, meaning there are hundreds of different ballot designs for our country's 3,000 counties. Then you consider the actual ballot itself. It comes in a secrecy envelope that is connected to each individual voter who needs to sign it. That signature is verified by judges who are sometimes trained by the FBI to detect inconsistencies. Counties across the country also say they have a system to update voter registration, death records, and address changes to make sure the ballots are going to the people they're supposed to, reducing the chance of frauds. I'm Dan Grossman reporting.
This isn't to say there aren't any cases of voter fraud. There are, but the Brennan Center for Justice says there are so rare and happen on such a small scale, they don't warrant the broad-based red flags some people raise. Still ahead, your mammogram comes back clear for cancer, but dense tissue gets in the way of a true diagnosis. How a lapse in our laws could be putting women's lives at risk.
From Montana's news leader, you're watching the MTN 530 News.
Welcome back. A lack of Montana law could be failing to protect women at risk of developing breast cancer.
That's because if a woman has what's known as a dense breast, her chances of getting cancer is higher, and doctors in our state aren't required to notify women beyond a simple letter chart with no explanation of what their cancer risk is. Here's MTN's investigative reporter, Andrea Lutz.
Roughly 1 in 2 women have dense breast tissue. But here's what's alarming. Research is finding mammograms alone might not be effective in detecting tumors in women with dense breasts. Here's my MTN investigation I've been working on since before the COVID-19 pandemic hit.
Finding a tumor in a mammogram where breast tissue is dense is many times compared to finding a snowball in a snowstorm.
It wasn't really
for Michelle Bartholomew.
So I probably had that cancer for a year, like longer than you think.
Cancer lurked in her body even after her mammogram told her she was healthy.
Another year. Every year you go in for the mammogram, you expect that it's going to come back and be negative.
And hers did in September of 2016.
I would describe it as feeling like the top of your knuckle. That's kind of what it felt like. Small, kind of hard.
By December, that's how she described feeling a lump. Turns out that tumor never showed up. Like Michelle, about 40% of women have high dense breast tissue, something medical experts classify in 4 levels. The levels are typically seen in your mammogram report using letters A, B, C, or D. But in Montana, no other explanation is required beyond that. And Montana is lagging behind on this, with no breast density notification law or pending legislation. This while 38 other states form some sort of density requirement notification system, some even providing women with insurance coverage for next steps.
If you have a lot of lymph nodes.
Michelle, who lives in Missoula, ended up going out of state to Washington for a second opinion.
I think that in order to make any kind of medical decision, I like having as much information as possible.
In Washington, every patient with extremely dense breasts receive a written notification disclosed in a letter.
Together, you can decide what screening options are right for you.
But even when a woman is armed with this information, the big question is, what do they do with it?
We didn't know what the supplemental screening was to do at that time. So we were telling people you need to do something more, but we weren't really sure what to do.
Dr. Michael Stewart is a diagnostic radiologist working at both hospitals in Missoula. He admits cancer was being missed by mammograms alone. That's why Providence Health purchased an automated breast ultrasound.
And we're finding several cancers that have been hidden.
It's a supplemental 3D screening that has the potential to find 35% more cancers that wouldn't be found with a mammogram alone.
I don't think a lot of people are well versed in it at this point and know that it really is a big issue. So within the last couple of years, it's really changing. As radiologists, we understand that this is really important. We don't like it when we look at a mammogram and something is hidden.
But it's only an option for women who qualify with their insurance. So another option for women seeking peace of mind is an abbreviated MRI. The only one that's available in Montana is at Big Sky Diagnostic Imaging in Billings for an out-of-pocket expense of $500.
When insurance potentially has you blocked out, this could be a lifesaver.
MTN Investigates checked in with all of Montana's largest hospitals to see who had an independent policy on breast density notification, in addition to Providence Health. At St. Peter's Health, they currently do not assign a value for individual breast density, but currently are evaluating how we can start. Those with the Billings Clinic say they formed a notification reporting policy sometime this last spring, while St. Vincent healthcare officials say they've been informing patients of breast tissue density for roughly 6 to 7 years. But beyond that, our additional requests for comment went unanswered. The Komen Foundation says dense breasts are more common in young women and thin women.
Right?
But as most know, cancer knows no boundaries.
So you just kind of have to live your best day.
Michelle now takes her breast cancer diagnosis in strides as a dragon boat racing teammate with other survivors.
Sometimes that's the best healing, is helping other people.
The group allows for a support system, although this year's season hasn't quite started yet. Still, going forward, she questions if a mammogram will be enough.
A lot of answers to my questions are we don't know. If I'm in my fear-based anxiety state, then it makes me want to do everything. But when you come back to reality, it's, you can't live your life in fear.
The Mammography Reporting Act was introduced into Congress back in 2017, but it is at a standstill. And some states say they're waiting for that federal legislation to take hold. But meanwhile, the American Cancer Society says some 42,000 women die from breast cancer every single year. For MTN Investigates, I'm Andrea Lutz.
Currently, the FDA requires breast density language be included in patient letters and reports, but again, no other explanation of what that means is required.
Clouds clear overnight, temperatures drop to the 40s and 50s, but we're talking a big warm up in our forecast for the weekend coming up next.
Get great. Storm Tracker weather starts now with Chief Meteorologist Elizabeth Copeland.
All right, it is Thursday. One more day to go to the end of the week, and we are still tracking some of those clouds. Just like yesterday, that cold front has moved through. Those thick clouds are still covering most of north central Montana right now. We do have a break in the clouds across the High Line, where we'll check temperatures here in a second, but I can guarantee they're probably quite a bit warmer. We didn't have those clouds really for the majority of the afternoon and early evening hours. The only activity we're watching right now storm-wise is right between Bozeman and Billings. A couple of thunderstorms rumbling through there. We do have a slight chance of those showers making up to Lewistown, which we'll track in our future track. So here we go. The current temperatures are mostly holding steady in the low 70s. Those areas without the clouds in northeast corner. Typically, we're already warmer there anyway, but we're still in the low 80s there, while the rest of us hold steady in the mid 70s. Havre at 78 right now. So overall, this is very cool. Feeling a lot more like fall today than it is late summer because of these cooler temperatures. But no worries, we're going to warm right back up for the weekend if you are a warm temperature fan, because the last 2 weeks we've been holding steady right around that average line. It was just a couple of weeks, about a week ago, it was 8 degrees above average today, and yesterday right on the 0 degree mark, which means not 0 degrees actually, but right at average temperature, which are typically in the mid to upper 80s this time of year. And I bet today's, when that comes out, we're going to be quite a bit below average before we see that warm up right back in store. So mostly cloudy skies out there today. A little breeze here and there, but for central Montana, again, it's just breezy. Definitely not a windy afternoon. Those gusts were clocking in right around 20-25 miles per hour earlier this afternoon. They're calming down quite a bit now, but all that wind was created not only because of the cloud cover, but because of that at least cold front in the move through, creating clouds and a little bit more of that breeze, especially earlier this morning. It is 72 out now, feeling like 73. That dew point's very low though, 27 degrees. That's very dry air moving right back in, kicking out all that moisture from yesterday of our U.S. Bank ICAM out of Great Falls. So if you have some plans to go hiking, do expect a big warm up again through Saturday. We're talking upper 80s. Low 90s in the forecast as we head through that weekend mark. We're still going to see a lot more of that warmer weather to come as we head into next week as well. So here is that system that's sitting just south of us, mostly through Butte, Bozeman, and even parts of Billings as that system pushes up closer to Fort Peck, but otherwise just skirts just to the east of us and continues to move off, keeping us clear overnight. Temperatures are going to drop to the 40s and 50s because of that. Tomorrow, to end the work week, we're looking at plenty of sunshine in the forecast and a lot more of that dry air, but cooler conditions do settle in for at least the rest of the weekend. So let's look at our 7-day forecast here. We're going to hold steady in at least some of the 90s in the forecast before we finally see those 80s return by next week. And then we're going to have a lot more of that cooler weather in the forecast for us with a few spotty showers possible as we head into next week. So overall, going to keep it much cooler than average over the next couple of days, not only in Great Falls, but in Helena as well. We're going to have lows in the 50s and even some 40s, especially tonight as those skies remain clear. And again, some spotty showers later next week. Until then, we'll see all that sunshine as we wake up for our Friday morning tomorrow.
Still to come, a Montana native fighting for a vaccine. His research on coronavirus is coming up next.
From Montana's news leader, you're watching the MTN 530 News.
Welcome back. As the pandemic continues, the search for a vaccine does as well, only with the help of a Whitefish native.
MTN's Marin Sue spoke with him to find out what goes into that research and what it could mean.
Whitefish High School graduate Colin Fields is working tirelessly to come up with a coronavirus vaccine.
To make sure that they meet criteria to be enrolled in the study, and then to monitor them after they receive the investigational vaccine to make sure that their side effects are being evaluated and whether or not there are any serious side effects to the vaccine that need to be halting criteria for the study to proceed. So my main role is to serve as a liaison in some ways to the study itself by enrolling patients.
Colin Fields graduated from Whitefish High School in 2001 and went on to become a family physician in Seattle. Always having an interest in medicine, Fields is currently working on a vaccine for coronavirus with Kaiser Permanente, who was awarded the first phase of vaccine research. And he says research is going well.
From the time that the genome was developed to the time that we administered the first investigational vaccine was just 66 days. And that's really completely remarkable to have developed a vaccine and administered it to a human being in that short period of time.
Fields says the first phase of the study was a success and was conducted on 45 volunteers ages 18 to 55.
The vaccine was fully capable of producing neutralizing antibodies and it had a very well-tolerated safety profile.
He says the vaccine works on combating the novel part of the virus, which is what gives it its signature crown shape. Fields says phase 3 is to test the vaccine in a larger group of 30,000 people.
Does it actually actually change the clinical course, either by protecting people in the group that receive the vaccine or mitigating the effects of the infection.
He says the study is done ethically, and at any point, if anything in the study changes or a volunteer wants to leave, they can. As of right now, Fields does not have an estimate of when the vaccine will be ready to be released to the public. In Whitefish, Maureen Siu, MTN News.
Field says vaccine trials are taking place nationwide. However, there is currently no location in Montana to participate in the vaccine study. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
All right, so those numbers actually did get updated now. If you can believe it, we are actually going to be in the 80s, not the 90s tomorrow. Knew something didn't look right there. And then we're going to skyrocket to the 90s by Sunday. Monday, still on track to be the warmest day of the week. A few clouds do roll in, but we'll be at 95, a warm afternoon for us. And then we're going to drop down to the 80s by next Thursday. We do have a few isolated thunderstorms in the forecast, but those don't come until later next week for the capital city. That's going to be Wednesday night into Thursday morning.
Well, move over, right-hand man. Today we salute the lefties of this world, myself included. August 13th is International Left-Handers Day. Scientists believe hand preference actually begins to develop before you're born.
Only 10% of the population is left-handed. Several famous people are in that small group, including presidents George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama. Historians say Ronald Reagan was also left-handed, but he was forced to switch as a child. Happy Lefties Day, Tim.
Happy Lefties Day, yeah. You know, we don't really get anything for it other than the
I would have baked you a cake, but I didn't know about it. Sorry.
Next year.
Next year. It's on the calendar.
All right. That's all the time we have. We'll see you back here at 10.